Alright guys, welcome to Mrs. Dronda's Crash Course. In each of these videos, we're going to go over one quick topic that you'll need to know for your midterm. My best advice to you guys on how to use these videos is to look at a question, pause the video, try it on your own, and then watch it for an explanation, because otherwise you're going to wind up just watching me do it and feeling maybe a little overly confident. So as I work through these, pause the video, use them to interact, and as always, if you guys have questions, send them my way. In this video, we're going to talk about operations on complex numbers and simplifying powers of I. So take a second, pause the video, try these questions, see how they go, and then hit play when you're ready to continue. So let's start with simplifying powers of I. So here's the big thing you need to remember, that really the powers of I are cyclical, right? I to the 0, anything to the 0 is 1. I to the first is just I to the second is -1, because remember I is the square root of -1. So when I square it, it's just -1. And I to the third is -I. These values you can get from your calculator if you want. Okay? So that is totally fine to need to get those from your calculator. But we need to be able to simplify higher powers. So what we're going to look at is basically how many times could we go around this cycle of 4, and where would we wind up? So we're going to see how many times 4 goes in evenly, and then what our remainder is. So when I look at this, I'm going to look at my exponent and do 131. I'm going to see how many times 4 goes in evenly, and I'm going to look for my remainder. So when you put this in your calculator, I'm not really worried about the number that you get, but what you get out on this as a decimal is 0.75. And remember that that's 3/4. So your remainder here is 3, right? So this is equivalent to I to the third, and I to the third is -I. Okay, let's look at the next one. So I'm doing 25 over 4. Again, I'm not worried about the number I get. I realize it's 6, but that doesn't really matter to me. And I get 6.25, which remember is 1/4. So that is a remainder of 1. So R1. So this is equivalent to I to the first, which is just I. Now this one, simplify. So 400 over 4, I already know where this is going. This is just 100 and none over 4, right? Remainder 0. So this is equivalent to I to the 0, which is just equivalent to 1. So again, it's just cycles. Look at your remainder and go from there. All right, let's look at some problems where we're doing actual operations on I. The only thing you really need to know here is how to do the basic algebra, which is all algebra 1, and then that I squared is -1. Really, that's mostly as hard as these get. So if I look at this one, I see that there's distribution. I'm going to distribute this out. So -3 times 2 is -6I squared plus -18I, or -18I, whatever. Now this is -6I squared is -1 minus 18I, so this is 6 minus 18I. Let's look at another one. So 2I minus 3I plus 7, this is double distribution. So either you can use the box method or you can just use double distribution. I'm going to do one of these with the box method and one with double distribution. So let's say we did box method. So 2I minus 3, so I'm going to put that on one side. And I plus 7, I plus 7. So then I'm going to multiply every column by every row. So in this first box, I would have 2I times I, so 2I squared. Then I would have -3I. Then I would have 14I. And then I would have -21. So this is really 2I squared minus 3I plus 14I minus 21. We can simplify this a little. So 2I squared is really 2 times -1. -3I plus 14I is plus 11I minus 21. And now this is -2 minus 21, so -23 plus 11I. Okay, let's do the next one. So this one's really important because remember, squaring means multiply by itself. So you cannot just say, oh, square the first part, square the second part. If you want to make Mrs. Geronda cry, that is one of the fastest ways to do it. So this, I'm just going to write it out twice because squaring means multiply by itself, right? And now I'm going to do double distribution on this. So 6i times 6i is 36i squared. 6i times 1 is positive 6i. 6i times 1 is positive 6i. Notice those are both positive. They're not going to add to 0, okay? 1 times 1 is 1. So this is 36 times negative 1 plus 12i plus 1. This is negative 36. So this is really negative 35 plus 12i. All right, last one, and then we're going to do the one from class. So this is not multiplication. This is subtraction, right? So remember that I'm subtracting each of the terms in the second part. Remember that there's an unwritten 1 out there as a coefficient. So I am distributing that negative 1 out. So this is 4i minus 3 plus 8i minus 5. 4i plus 8i is 12i. Negative 3, negative 5 is negative 8. And typically you'll see this in a plus bi form. So you'll see the real number part first and then the imaginary part second. All right, last one, and we did this in class, but this is sort of a more difficult type, so I wanted to make sure we understood that example that we did in class. So you're squaring each part. So I'm going to start by rewriting it. So x minus I times x minus I. Do not copy those as a 1, please. Plus 3x plus 2i times 3x plus 2i. There's a reason I write my i's like that, like backwards J's, and it's because I don't want them looking like 1s. All right, so let's multiply the first ones. So x squared minus xi plus I squared, a negative times a negative is positive, right? Plus, let's multiply these, 9x squared plus 6xi plus 6xi, again, not 0, that's 12, plus 4i squared. Now we're going to combine a bunch of like terms. So I'm going to start by saying, okay, this is x squared minus 2xi. I squared is minus 1. Plus 9x squared plus 12xi minus 4. Now we can really go through and combine like terms. So this is 10x squared plus 10xi, because I've got negative 2 and positive 12, minus 5. If you can handle that, you're pretty good with i's. All right, that is your crash course on imaginary numbers, operations, and powers. So if you have questions, send them to me. Otherwise, good luck studying.